This morning in terms of the communications office. Communications Director Mike Dubke is resigning. So how will President Trump respond to the growing cloud of Russia this week as his son-in-law is now a focus of the Russia investigation? So let's bring in former Republican governor of New Hampshire, John Sununu. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning. How are you, Allison?
I'm well. Let's dive into all of these different Russia threads because I want to gauge your feelings on these separately. Let's talk about what Jim Sciutto, our Jim Sciutto, is breaking this morning in terms of reporting. There were these intercepted communications picked up by our intel agencies that heard Russian government officials talking about some kind of what they called derogatory information they had on Donald Trump, then a candidate, and whether or not they could use it to leverage the Trump campaign. Are you troubled? In
the 2016 campaign, that's right. I came on your show with derogatory business information on Donald Trump during the primary. Why is it a surprise? Why is it a news story that the Russians in Washington would convey the same material to the Russians in Moscow? The same story that you're quoting at the bottom of the story noted that the same sources that gave your reporter that information conceded that it was possible that the Russians were exaggerating or even making it up. Yeah. Why is this even a story worth talking about?
It's only a news story, you're right, if, as part of the investigative thread, it turns out they were able to leverage the Trump campaign and they were able to somehow use the information they had to help get the Trump campaign to do something that they wanted them to do. So this is just one more thread down that line where, as you know, congressional committees and the FBI are trying to figure out if they can connect those dots.
Everybody was talking about Trump's business problems. Why is that news now again? Look, let's put this whole thing in context. You have to tell me what you think the venality was that they could have conveyed.
Well, do you think that Jared Kushner, in attempting to set up a back channel, as has been reported, do you think that the Trump campaign wanted something out of the Russians and that there was some sort of dovetailing of agendas?
In the 10 weeks between an election and an inauguration, there is a lot of discussion going on between all members of the, or potential members of an administration, with all kinds of folks. When I was named chief of staff, a lot of ambassadors that were slight acquaintances tried to become good friends in that 10 weeks. It is not unusual. You guys have made back channel a derogatory term. A back channel is a positive asset. Nixon could not have done China. Nixon could not have done China without a back channel.
Yes, even
Kennedy
if it
used back channels.
During the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, so you're saying that during the transition, when there's another president, that you're comfortable with the incoming administration using a back channel, if the reporting is correct, using Russian equipment so as not to be caught on the U.S. surveillance and intelligence equipment. You're comfortable with that kind of back channel?
Speculate on why. I don't think it happened that way, but let's speculate on why it might have happened. There might have been concern that the intelligence community was feeding Obama the information that he probably shouldn't have had. And you know what? With what you're reporting now on what has come out from deep sources in the intelligence community, if that was a concern, and I doubt it was, but if that was a concern, they were pretty smart to have those feelings, weren't they?
Is there anything about the Russia investigation connected to the Trump campaign that troubles you?
Yeah, the reporting that's taking place and the exaggeration of venality and the suggestion. Look, it's now 7 months since the election, and to this day, no one has cited a single piece of evidence. In your last session, you guys were patting yourselves on the back because you said Clapper had passed the responsibility off to the FBI. But you forget that in the last weeks of the administration, Obama allowed all his intelligence agencies to share their information. And there is no question in my mind that when that happened, since Clapper's group had originated this, that anything the FBI had would have gone back to Clapper. So it's nice for Clapper to try and wash his hands of it by throwing it in the FBI's lap, but he had access in those days to whatever the FBI had. There is nothing there.
So Jared Kushner meeting with a major Russian banker of a massive bank that has connections to Vladimir Putin, nothing to see there.
Well, tell me what you think is to see there, and I'll comment on it.
What do you think would be the motivation?
I don't think there's anything there. So
why would they do it?
You're implying,
why would they meet?
Because during the 10 weeks, everybody is trying to meet somebody who's going to be in the administration. Everybody who's involved in business, everybody who's involved in politics. I can't tell you how many people tried to meet with me between the time I was named
Did you meet with a Russian
staff.
banker when everybody tried to meet with you?
No, but I had breakfast with the vice president at the Russian embassy, and a lot of folks there started talking to me.
And would you have carved out time to meet with a Russian banker with ties to Vladimir Putin if he asked?
I'm not even sure what would have happened if that had happened. First of all, Putin wasn't there. But look, you're asking hypotheticals on hypotheticals.
Well, I'm trying to actually take your temperature. I'm trying to gauge your comfort level with all of this.
My comfort level, the only discomfort I have is with folks in the media trying to create a venality without having the courage to specifically tell me what the venality that I should be concerned about is.
Well,
I have not identified a venality. Have you?
Well, you should be concerned if there was collusion. And that's what
I don't see any evidence of collusion. Do you?
No. That's
okay, so that should end your reporting right there. You should put an exclamation point after you know.
Understood, but we're at the beginning of the investigation. So what?
You're 7 months into the investigation.
Not exactly.
You're 7 months.
Robert Mueller has just taken over. Robert Mueller has just taken over.
It's a new investigation.
Well, no. I mean, look, that's not exactly fair, Governor, because as you know, Congress people have been calling for a special counsel to do this, to handle this, because so it gets away from all of the partisan bickering. So it's just starting in that regard.
Can I ask a question? If Mueller comes out and says that my version is correct and yours isn't, how much crow are you going to eat?
Governor, I don't have a version of events.
Of course you do. The whole half hour I listened to is a version.
Governor, we are asking questions of the sources of the people who know, attempting to see where the investigation is. The investigation isn't complete.
Without identifying a venality that should be investigated.
Governor, we appreciate your perspective that there's nothing to see here and that the investigation is, I don't know, silly?
Politically motivated by folks trying to rationalize a horribly run Democratic presidential campaign.
Governor John Sununu, thank you very much. Always great to get your perspective.
Nice to be here, Allison.
Chris.
Well, they're certainly doing a better job coordinating messaging on how to deal with the investigation. Governor Sununu